Hello and welcome to another episode. I am Brian, the Unskilled Commander, and this is a new episode of Possibilities. This series is all about me taking 3 different legendary creatures, not quite at random, but the next ones I can find, out of my collection, and just seeing how would I build these into a commander deck? Or would I? Are the cards worth building into a commander deck? Are they bad? Are they good? And how would I go about just instinctively, what would be my first thoughts on how to build these in the commander decks? This is the kind of thing where, adding in the comments would be great, saying, oh, build it this way, or I've seen friends do it this way and it worked really well, or yeah, that's a horrible card, no one uses that as a commander. But let's go ahead and jump into the all-red edition on this one. We've got Akroma, Angel of Fury, Italia, Primal Storm, and Anax, Hardener of the Forge. So first off, we've got Akroma, Angel of Fury. An 8-drop, 3 red, 5 normal. It's a 6/6, and she can't be countered, with flying, trample, protection from white and blue. You can pay 1 red, and for every red you pay, Akroma gets +1/+0 until end of turn. She also has a morph cost where you can play 3, put her onto the battlefield as a 2/2 upside down, and then pay 6 mana to flip her into her normal form. Basically, right off the bat, I probably wouldn't make this a commander because it's too expensive. I used to have a Toxtrol deck, and that cost 7 to play, and even that was ridiculous because even with really good mana rocks and maybe a couple spells that you could sacrifice, play to gain an extra 3 black or whatever like that, it was really hard to get Toxtrol out before turn 7. Maybe turn 5, and even then, it wouldn't last more than like my end step before someone blew it up. Now, granted, that was a bigger target because it immediately affected other people's board states, but even so, Akroma is an 8-drop, so it's going to take you a long time to get her on the field, especially with a mono-red deck. Now, the good thing, if you were going to build her, I would instinctively go for commander damage. You're going to want to get all kinds of, good equipment, swords and all that, make her unblockable, she's already flying and trample, but you're going to want to make her Shroud or Hexproof so no one can target it, and lots of buffs, lots of, hey, here's an extra +3/+3, or here's whatever, and then dump all your red mana into her and try and get her up to one-shot lethal commander damage of 21 damage. And swing in the air, trample, boom, you get through. The likelihood of that happening is pretty low, and all it takes is 1 board wipe, 1 targeted removal, and now she's going to cost 10 to get out, and then 12, and then it's not cost effective. Now, if you wanted to use her as a mono red commander to play some sort of other red spell, other red theme, well, why wouldn't you use something cheaper? There's plenty of low cost red legendaries that could just be 3 or 4 drops, and you can still use the red. So I wouldn't really use Akroma as a legendary, or as a commander rather, but it is a really cool card and a pretty powerful one if you get the right mix of equipment and or red mana to spend into her. Next up, Italia, Primal Storm. I really love this card. It's in a couple different decks. And it's cost 5 to play, 2 red and 4 colorless, and it's a 6/6, also like Akroma. But 5 is a little bit more manageable. That's still on your higher end. It's still knocking on the door of being too high to be a commander. But with good mana balance of mana rocks and stuff, you can get her out probably turn 3 or 4. What you're going to want to do with this one, well, rather I shouldn't say it like that. What I would do with this one is clearly I would make it very heavy in terms of multiple combats. Because whenever Italia Primal Storm attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. Then you may cast that any number of non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. Now, mono red, again, is going to be tricky in some aspects, but there's definitely creatures that give you multiple attack phases like Aurelia and stuff like that. And there's got to be a couple red spells that do it, that give you an extra turn or an extra combat, most likely the combats. So that's what I would focus on. If I was going to build it, I would totally get as many red spells that give you extra combat phases as possible, and some really good ramp in terms of mana rocks, Thran Dynamo, all that, to get her out as quickly as possible and start swinging. Also, you're going to want to put some haste on the field, static, so that, whenever Italia comes in, it can immediately attack before someone... obviously instant speed spells can destroy it before a combat, but you get the idea of being able to swing, generally speaking, before anyone can react. Then you turn her sideways steal a bunch of cards, play a bunch of cards, and then immediately go to a second combat, do it again. You're taking away your opponent's answers and their potential win cons, and you're getting yourself whatever, spells, enchantments, lots of creatures to swing in with. It would be a fun deck to try. Again, like I said, blowing her up once or twice and she's kind of out of the running because it's too expensive to recast. And again, you're going to hit that at like turn 4 maybe. If you're really lucky, turn 3, but even then that's kind of unlikely. So you're only going to get like a couple turns with her at best. And then, the entire concept of the deck is shot if she gets blown up too many times. So you're going to want other good, powerful creatures in there that can also benefit from multiple attacks. And finally, we have Annex Hardened in the Forge. Annex's power is equal to your devotion to red. Whenever Annex or another non-token creature you control dies, create a 1/1 red satyr creature token with this creature can't block. If the creature had power 4 or greater, create 2 of those tokens. So it's a asterisk 3. It costs 3, though. It's the cheapest commander out of the bunch, with 2 red and 1 colorless. So in terms of mana cost, this is a really good commander. You can get it out on turn 2, turn 3, on par normal if nothing else. And then the more cards you play, the more permanents you play, rather, the stronger Annex gets. But he doesn't really have anything about that. Like, you can make him a 12-3 or 15-3. He's still a 3, so anyone can block him and destroy him for the most part. And he doesn't have trample, so even if you make it a 21-21 or 21-3, it's not going to get through. So I wouldn't go for using Annex himself to be the win con, but in terms of his ability, again, it has to be a non-token creature that you control dies. So you could theoretically make it a lot of little tiny creatures that are red, so that their pips count towards his damage for, blocking and killing creatures, and then you can just recast them for 5 and then 7, and then even then, now you're getting to the point again where it's too expensive to recast. But a lot of little tiny spells that make 1/1 goblins or 1/1 creatures that aren't tokens, and then maybe have something, I don't know, maybe one of the altars where it's like sacrifice a creature, get mana, or goblin bombardment where sacrifice a creature, deal 1 damage to each target. So then you make a bunch of legitimate 1/1 creatures, cast them, then blow them all up to get a bunch of mana to do something else or do damage, and then when they blow up, you make 1/1 red satyrs. So maybe the bombardment idea is how you would go, like just every super cheap red creature of any kind, basically, just to dump them on the field as fast as possible, then channel them all into goblin bombardment, doing 10 damage to somebody, and then you make 10 satyrs, and you sack them to do another 10 damage. So you could theoretically use it for direct damage. It could be an interesting way to utilize his power to just constantly smack people. But again, you can't use tokens to make the satyrs, so you only get one shot in terms of, you have to have a lot of good card draw in this one as well, and red's not known for its card draw, because you need to be able to keep dumping real spells, 1, 2, 3 drop creatures that would be able to create a satyr when they die. So out of these 3, Atalia Primal Storm is probably the best bet in terms of what I would suggest to make a real commander deck out of. And the multiple attack phases is interesting. I kind of am intrigued by that, so maybe that's something that could be down the pike for me to make Atalia. But again, 5-drop commander, that's already starting to be a bit too expensive to cast. You cast it once, everyone sees it coming, they're going to immediately blow it up before your end step, and now it's 7, now it's 9, and it becomes unreasonable to try and recast. But if you can get it off once and have a couple ways to do, like maybe 2 or like maybe 3 or 4 combats in one turn, you might have a chance of doing some serious damage before it gets blown up. But the potential for fun is definitely there, but I'm not sure how viable it is. As for Akroma, Akroma might go into that Atalia deck just for the ability to have something else that's flying and can be buffed up really high, but even then, wasting 8 mana in one turn just for one creature, it seems a bit much. And then Annex, it could be good, I guess, if you had just the right way to sack small creatures and make satyrs and then utilize that in some fashion. But maybe I'm just unskilled enough that I can't do it. But there you go. That's how I would instinctively try and build these commanders if I had to. Now, I'm not saying, like I said, I don't think any of them are necessarily great ideas for commanders. They're probably really great cards for in other decks, but I don't think they could carry a full deck themselves. What do you think? I assume Italia has been the commander in many decks and probably has done pretty well. Other than that, I'm not sure if the others could be viable. What are your thoughts? How would you build them? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time.